Now, more than 175,000 people have signed an online petition calling for a ban on the practice of covering trees and hedges with nets to prevent birds from nesting in them.
Now, nets are often used by developers to keep birds away during construction projects, but conservationists argue that it's a threat to wildlife. John Maguire's been looking into this.
It's a cover-up, but is it right? 18 trees have been shrouded by giant nets at this school in Ely. Cambridgeshire County Council wants to fell the trees to expand the school, something which wouldn't be allowed if birds were nesting. Elaine Ewart spotted them, tweeted about them, and was amazed by the response.
I think that it's made such an impression because it's such a dramatic visual metaphor, if you like, of what we're doing to the natural world.
It's been happening across the UK, here recently in Surrey on a large scale, and in Warwickshire, where hedgerows have been covered. The Royal Society for the Protection of Birds wants them banned.
The problem is that we're excluding birds from their nesting habitat at this key time of year. The countryside should be alive with birdsong right now, but across our country we've lost 44 million birds in 50 years. And when nature is in crisis, we really can't afford to be adding to its pressures with things like these nets.
There are concerns that wildlife may become trapped inside the nets, as happened here in North Lincolnshire. But developers say the nets protect birds and animals and are deployed in a controlled and responsible manner. Trees with nests can't be chopped down during the spring and summer nesting season, so nets allow building work to continue all year round.
Legislation protects nesting birds, as it rightly should, but developers are under a lot of pressure to bring forward sites for development, to start building houses to meet the housing crisis, and therefore a delay when they can't do tree works between March and August means that their development is put back. It means we can't start on site, and it means we can't build the houses that we need.
A parliamentary petition calling for a ban has reached more than 175,000 names, well above the number required to trigger a Commons debate. Back in Cambridgeshire, the councils reacted to the negative public response here and ordered the nets to be taken down. Whether they protect or they threaten wildlife, these will be removed at Easter. John Maguire, BBC News, Ely.
Now, unsurprisingly, this is an issue that's attracted some high-profile figures to react on social media. Stephen Fry has tweeted, "A robin redbreast in a cage puts all heaven in a rage," wrote William Blake. What might he have said about trees and hedges being swathed in nets deliberately to stop birds from nesting? An enraging practice.
Yes, also this from TV presenter Chris Packham. He's been writing, "This ghastly new netting practice has to stop. It is the antithesis for everything conservation stands for."
Well, joining us now is Marcus Kohler, who is from the Chartered Institute of Ecology and Environmental Management. Good morning to you, Marcus.
Good morning.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? You look at it and you can understand why so many people react so very emotionally to this. Where do you stand when it comes to netting?
Well, netting it seems to have snowballed this year. It's a relatively new tool that is being used. And with that has come, I think, some abuse of the process, to say the least. When you see a tree, covered in nets, it elicits an emotional response, and rightly so. We love our habitats and so forth. However, we have a real issue. The construction industry has to work during this time of year, and they have to ensure that they don't destroy nests legally.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at what the Home Builders Federation saying that netting trees aligns with relevant environmental requirements in instances where it's been agreed with the local authority that a tree has to be replaced. When you hit, I mean, they have a side to this story, which they say that there's a problem, this is the way to fix it.
Yes, it's a tool that could be used, but I question the way it's being used at the moment. I think the RSPB have come up with some very good guidance about this, and they are talking about if it has to be used, you need to be checking at least 3 times a day. Well, they say 1 to 3 times.
Checking what?
Checking to see if there's any birds caught in this. I mean, it could, as well as the aesthetic side, there's a very real risk of animals being caught in these nets at this time of year.
The thing is, as Charlie read out kind of the conditions around it, if constructors are doing it by the law, you know, by the letter of the law, they're not doing anything wrong, are they? So rather than, I suppose, the anger or the emotion being directed at the constructors, shouldn't it be almost higher up so that the law is more specific and...
Well, it's a relatively new issue. It's provoked, in many ways, a very strong response on social media, and I think that's a good thing. What we have to do is work with the construction industry to make sure that their footprint is clear prior to the breeding season starting.
Explain that a little bit more.
So, when we have a development, they will have gone through a process of ecological assessment.
To look at what potential damage or the effects on the environment around them.
We always say you have to make sure that you have that you're not affecting breeding birds during the season, and therefore, you know, what the areas that we are protecting within the development process, we protect appropriately through construction and through fencing. But we do have to clear areas that are going to be lost prior to the breeding season starting. Now that is, you know, essentially the same impact as this plastic, but it is less offensive, and it also doesn't carry the risk of killing species during the breeding season, or killing species that I think netting left for a long period of time carries a lot of risks attached. And some of the things I've read, people are doing this without planning permission, and I think that is.
Well, I suppose on the face of it, I imagine one of the things that this, you know, us putting this piece out, attention has been drawn to it. I guess people will be more aware of it, and maybe what do you do? Talk to your local authority if you see something and you wonder, is that the route to checking that everything's been done properly?
Well, I would say to professional ecologists to think very carefully under what circumstances you want to use netting, because they're quite often advising the client. And I would say to clients and housing developers, you know, think about the impact of this on the local community and so forth. There are better ways to address dealing with the breeding season. Obviously, constructors have a very tough time at this time of year. They have to do most of their work at this time of year, but they have to work within the law. This is obviously coming as a quick fix that is just very simplistic, and to my mind needs to be reviewed.
Marcus, thank you very much. It's Marcus Kohler, ecological consultant, and there's some people very interested now.
Will be, thank you.
I'm guaranteed people are sending pictures today of trees they've seen that aren't
I've not
netted.
seen it.
No, neither have I.
I've not
It's
seen it,
curious,
so
isn't
if it's happening, let us know, by
look
all
out for it
means.
now.